Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and Louis de Souza here. Today is Monday, March the 4th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London. Sydney, Australia is at 12 midnight. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I am sitting here at my station looking outside the window at about 7 inches of snow. So it's a very pretty landscape this morning, Louis. It's nice to look out on nice, clean snow. You know, first thing when it's falling.
Snowing at this time of the year?
Ah, well, that's the way it is here in New England. You know, it's not like old England.
No, we're having lovely sunny days here.
Is that right?
Really warm up.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, you have the advantage of those Mediterranean currents coming through. Those really make it really very pleasant weather, which is really kind of interesting because England is further north than the U.S. is, but those weather currents really make a difference for you guys, so it makes a pleasant environment. So, how you doing? I mean, you had a good weekend, I hope?
Yeah, fantastic. Don't ask me what I did. I never remember what I did yesterday. Only focused on tomorrow.
Wait a minute, I thought you were supposed to focus on today. What's going on here?
Yeah. Living in today and focusing on what I want for today.
Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. No doubt about that. Well, this is a Q&A today. We don't have a specific topic in mind, but if you are listening to the live stream, feel free to add comments to the comment section, ask your questions and so forth, and we'll be very happy to address them. But in the meantime, we'll just kind of go off on whatever topics come to our minds because, that's what we do. That's part of what the fun is of being a deliberate creator, is deciding, what it is we're going to create. And as I was getting ready to do the show this morning, I was looking at the weather around here and thinking to myself, we tend to get, you and I kind of talked about this before we started the podcast. We tend to kind of get into the mood of thinking, well, the weather controls what's going to happen today. Like today we had the 7 inches of snow, so okay, we have to wait for everything to clear out, and people are rushing to get to work in some cases, and there's the franticness of Monday, and it all kind of adds up on people. But interestingly enough, we actually get to decide how we respond to that, and we can actually influence it too, although that kind of freaks people out when we talk about that, so I don't talk about it too much. But the simple fact is we get to decide how we're going to respond, and that response can really drive our day. That's one of the things that they talked about in The Secret. They had a nice little vignette that they played out there about a woman who woke up and it was one thing after another. She squirted the tube of toothpaste all over the place, and then she had a run in her stocking, and then she accidentally kicked her shin and all these things. And by the time her day was going, she was just in a really, really bad frame of mind. When she could have just simply, decide, so the toothpaste overflowed, big deal, or, okay, well, I can just change stockings, no big deal. It's all in the way that we perceive it, isn't it?
That's a chain of pain. So how do you break
the
that
chain of pain?
Well,
I love that.
Yeah.
The chain of pain. Oh, jeez.
Haven't you heard that before?
I have never heard that phrase before.
No.
That's new to me.
The chain of joy and the chain of pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're going to make it onomatopoeic, we ought to find something that actually rhymes with joy. But I can see that chain of pain. That's something that we can focus on if we really, really, really want to. But what did you ask? How do I avoid the chain of pain? I try to change the subject as soon as possible.
How would you break the chain of pain?
Yeah, I change the subject as soon as possible. I mean, that it's not always easy to do.
Which means you have to take some time out. You have to reflect. You have to,
You have to start saying, you know what? I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on something I like better. And that's actually sometimes the challenge is, okay, so what do I like better? Right now I'm feeling all this
follow
frustration.
A rocket of desire.
Yeah. Oh, geez, heaven forbid. I mean, what's your method? I mean, I imagine daily processes kind of play a role, but you're just kind of a positive person anyway, so you probably don't really stay on a chain of pain very long.
Bang, bang, bang.
Bang, bang. Okay.
Change the subject! Was that 10-pound mallet I was using this morning?
10-pound what?
Mallet.
Oh, mallet. Oh, a mallet. Yeah, well, okay, that's one way to do it, I suppose. I kind of like to do it the non-painful way, but,
You do it gently, huh?
I do. I prefer gentle. I think we need to be gentle with ourselves.
You.
Well. No, I'm serious. I think that we as human beings tend to be really, really hard on ourselves. And I say that because I'm probably the number one suspect in that area, because I've been really, really hard on myself many, many times throughout my life. And just being aware of that and deciding, you know what, I'm going to start being nice to myself has all by itself made an improvement. It's helped me. It's easier to stay in that positive place when I'm just being nice to myself. When I get the mallet out, it's like, okay, something's going to hurt in a few minutes here. I don't know what.
Oh, no, nothing will hurt.
Nothing will hurt? Oh, good. Well, that's a good thing. That's what I want. Yeah, but that's it. That's where we need to be gentle. We need to be kind to ourselves. I imagine that you run into that a little bit when you run into your sauna club. Is that what you call it, your sauna club, where you meet with your guys and talk about stuff?
It's a health club, but we call the group the Spa Spartans.
The Spa Spartans. Oh, okay. There it is. Yeah. Because I imagine
every nationality and age in there possible.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it nice, diverse. I like that. But I imagine that's like a topic of conversation, because you bring, well, first of all, you brought this whole concept of the law of attraction to the Spartan Spa, or Spa Spartan, which is a Spartan Spa or
Spa Spartan?
Spa Spartan. Okay, the Spa Spartan group. And I imagine that, like with any other situation where you're trying to help people out who are kind of, learning the concept, you probably run into situations where people are a little bit rough on themselves, a little bit tough, a little bit beating themselves up a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I was having a long chat with one guy, and he was telling me how he was an alcoholic, and he was a reformed alcoholic, and he'd been through the AA process, and he now teaches at church and groups and things like that. And he really liked everything I was saying, so I thought, this is great. And he came back again and again, and one of the times he came back and he said, Louis, I like a lot that you're saying, but there's one thing I completely disagree with you. I said, great, what is that? He said to me, it's that there's no such thing as evil. I said, okay, good, that's great. Now, I've got a question for you. He said, what? I said, have you in your past done evil/bad to anybody else, and has anybody done evil/bad to you? He says, you have no idea. No idea of my life. You have no idea. So many times. I said, okay. Now, I see this healthy, clear-eyed, nice and easy person to speak to in front of me, who's looking good physically as well. So tell me, has all those experiences, have they not carved you into the person you are today? And he looked at me and he said, well, yes, they have. They have. And he was begrudgingly saying that because he was realizing what I was saying. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, were they evil or bad, or were they expansion tool to carve you into the person you are today? Which one was it?
Leading question.
And again, begrudgingly, he said, well, I suppose they were expansion tools to help me get to where I am now. So they're not evil. No, they're not really. So did they really carve you into the person you are today? Did those horrible experiences, those evil experiences, did they really form you into the person you are today? And he said, well, yes, I suppose so. You're right. Mm-hmm. So I said, is there really evil, or is there expansion points in your life? And again, he was forced into the corner of really saying, they were expansion points. And I said, can you still look at them, expansion points, as evil, or can you go back and look at them as evil? And he said, yes, you can. I said, you're right. But with an expanded viewpoint, you start looking at it differently. You start saying, I know what I don't want. I have a better idea now what I do want. Let me go that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And he really was an amazingly harmonious, clear chap that I had I haven't seen him for a long time, but I had a lot of respect for. Really, really nice guy. So, yeah, we've had many chats consequently about many things. I'm trying to think of one. The thing that really amazes me, Walt, and this is so true of almost every single time I go to the sauna, once, twice, maybe even 3 times, people thank me for my 10-minute discourse,
That's nice.
shake my hand, ask for my name, and sometimes take my number.
Wow.
It's incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Because I have learnt again and again how to take people from not knowing anything about the law of attraction to understanding it in quite a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is absolutely key to helping people feel empowered, to help people getting the idea that they create their own reality and that they can carve their own future, giving them that sense of self-worth again, that self-power that is so empowering about the law of attraction.
And it's enjoyable for you, clearly, because you clearly love doing it. You clearly enjoy helping people, and you clearly love seeing the results. I mean, it's a big deal for you.
When you say it's a big deal for me, it's quite interesting because my passion is more in the giving. Mm-hmm. Okay, the selling, if you want, is selling the concept of the law of attraction. All right, I'm a good salesman. All right, so I'm selling it, and I enjoy watching the cogs in somebody's mind change. Okay, and that does give me a sense of pleasure. But it's learning to present it succinctly, clearly, with panache and oomph. That really gets them wherever they're coming from. Because I never have the same conversation about the law of attraction with any 2 people, ever.
Well, yeah.
Okay. It never really starts off with, I'm this, and it goes to that. It always, I pick up where they are, and then I lead on.
Yeah.
Pick up where they are and lead on. Pick up where they are and lead on. And
well, you kind of have to, because if you don't, you're going to have a conversation that doesn't actually connect.
Exactly. But they come in from so many different angles every single time, and it really amazes me because I'm sitting back and saying, ooh, I remember doing that one that way, that one that way, that one that way, that one that way. And then you start realizing, wow, there's a billion different ways of selling this one. And then you start understanding what a good salesman is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Passionate about their subject, really enjoy it, love the product. Okay. So, businesses, I think, could benefit massively from getting their sales team to really get their teeth into what the heck the law of attraction is about. Because once they do, they will now be selling in a completely different way to anything else. Mm-hmm. And if they can't get on board with their company or their product, they must leave. It's not going to work. If you're there for your paycheck, okay, you're heading in the wrong direction quickly. Another thing that I learned about selling, because I was selling for many years and still do sell, is the product has to be important to you, very, very important.
Yes.
You have to study yourself. Okay, sales is one of the best ways I can put forward to anybody to learn about life.
Actually, I would suggest that even more than that, it isn't that you need to study yourself. It's that literally you can't even attempt to start selling until you study yourself. Because the first thing that you're trying to do is say, okay, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? How am I going to connect? What's going to happen here? And that moment is the moment you're looking inside. I mean, you just can't help but do it. It's just impossible.
You need that confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not confident, I don't think I can sell anything.
Right.
You need to be confident about who you are, where you're going first. And then on that, you now need to be confident about your product, and how you want to get it across and how you want to sell it. And it's really incredible how your sales just goes through the roof when you get this. It just absolutely goes to another level. And then
there's
you
also
start realizing...
There's a key element. The key element, and you touched on it, is you've got to believe in your product or service or whatever it is that you're selling. You got to believe in it. You got to feel good about it. You got to get excited about it because you really are excited about it, not because you made yourself be excited about it. And I say that because I've been on the other side of that fence where I've tried to sell stuff. I did this early on in my life, stuff that I really didn't believe in. I really wasn't excited about it. Like you said, I just need the money, so I went out to try to do this thing. And it was, I could actually sell a little bit that way, but overall, God, it just tears you down so fast because you're focusing on what you don't like. It's miserable.
Exactly. And if anybody in any company could just spend a little more time focusing on what they like about their company, their product, their boss, the system, instead of what they don't like about it, then they would go so much further, even without changing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they could come to love it.
Well, that's an interesting concept. Can you come to love something that you didn't really love the first time? I think you can do that with anything. The question is, will you? The question is it really, like, for instance, I remember the very first thing that I tried to sell
Good question. Yeah.
was I got hired by a telemarketing company that sells these meat packages, so you can buy packages of steaks and so forth that get shipped out on a monthly basis or whatever. And that job lasted 2 hours because I had absolutely no desire to do it. I didn't believe in it. I didn't care about it. I thought it was overpriced. I didn't like it. There was nothing about it that felt good. And I'm thinking to myself, could I have come to like that? Maybe, but what would I have put myself through to get there?
That's the price you have to work out with yourself. So, which is the path of the lesser evil? Is it sticking with a job and getting the money? Okay, or is it leaving it and trying something else and not having the money? So, which one is a path of least resistance? And that is what we want to recommend for people to do. Is to slowly, as you go down the path of least resistance, you slowly get to the path of more allowing. And then you get to do what I'm doing, is just doing something you absolutely love, and you have so much fun with it. All right, so that's.
I can kind of agree with what you're saying, but there's a piece of it that I think I have to kind of take issue with, which is choosing the lesser of two evils. Because in my mind, the lesser of two evils is still evil. It may not be as evil as the other one, but it's still evil. It's something that I don't like, that I don't want, that I don't prefer. It's like, no, I want to go in a different direction entirely. So I don't really want to pick.
Walt, I thought I just told you there is no evil.
You obviously haven't paid
I'm talking about the path of least resistance.
You obviously haven't paid any attention to politics lately, but because that's where they talk about choosing the lesser of two evils all the time. That's where you're supposed to vote, right? Choose the lesser of two evils. No, I don't want to vote for evil. No, thank you. I want to vote for what I want, not for what I don't want. And that's my point.
Gandhi. Give me the Gandhi.
I think I really want to be trying to find what is it that I really like? What is it that I really want? What is it that I really desire? And start there instead of trying to decide what do I like least.
I was thinking about Gandhi the other day because I watched a movie about him some time ago, and his people did not want to listen to him, so he goes up to the top of a building and refuses to eat, and he's slowly killing himself, and so eventually the masses capitulate.
Right,
and it is such a non-violent way of dealing with things that it was quite impressive to me, the way he endlessly worked with the more passive way of dealing with everything, rather than aggressive and active. And it was really surprising that that politics still goes into such a place that I can't even watch it. I haven't seen newspapers or news for so long. People bump into me and say, "Oh, what about this?" I said, "What about it?" I said, "What was that? Where is it? I don't know. What are you talking about?" I don't know. I really don't need to know. Don't want to know.
Yeah, well, that's just it. You decide, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. I'm going to focus on what I want instead. That's certainly not in my...
Not going to be part of my life.
Not in my top 100, let alone my top 10.
But a lot of people would take umbrage with not keeping up with the local politics or understanding what's going on in your world, But they don't really understand that you created your world and it is your world.
Yes.
And you can bring into it what you want. So it is really, it's quite a challenge for a lot of people to get to that place of understanding.
Well, we have our it's not so much a question as an observation, and I thought I'd share it from Sarah.
Sure. Hi, Sarah.
She says, and I think it's in regard to what we were just talking about, I am doing this as we speak, so I have been struggling a long time with my job. Basically, sat next to some people for a very long time, and most have negative energy that was breaking me. I was also being the middleman and getting shouted out from both sides, so the last few weeks I have switched my thoughts. I'm being grateful for this opportunity, and that I'm meant to be here to put positive energy into the atmosphere. So kind of following the approach that you take, like, oh, I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. I'm going to treat it differently. So first of all, congratulations, Sarah, for doing that. That's fabulous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She also has a follow-up. She says, I'm also very grateful that I have this job, that it pays my bills, to keep me warm and fed, and my animals fed, etc. And yeah, sure. That's part
the
of
gratitude aspect. Spot on. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So well done. Well done.
So Sarah, when you dealing with things like that, are you seeing that, first of all, that you create these people on both sides of you? Do you get that? It's a really tricky one, really is. And then do you know what they're teaching you?
Wow, now that's really deep stuff right there, because that's not normally the way we look at stuff, but you're right, we did bring everybody into our lives who's there, so we played a role.
I'll give you a little example, Walt. My small young daughter is going to creche for the first time this year, and my wife finds it difficult to take her and to get out the door. And my little 3-year-old says, I'm scared of going there, when she's absolutely not. I mean, when she's there, she loves it. She doesn't want to leave it. But she only does that with my wife. She never does it with me at all. I never have that problem. I'm the one who has to take her because of this little issue. So I'm trying to say to my wife, darling, do you understand that your daughter is teaching you something? They're like, what do you mean? I mean, she's quite aware of it, so she understands. I said, she's teaching you that you do not need to worry about her. And that it's not scary and fearful for her. The only reason she's picking it up or saying it is because she's feeling it from you. So she's saying, don't worry about me. I'm okay. That's what she's saying. That's what she's actually trying to teach you. She's slapping you in the face the way she's doing it, but that's what she's teaching you. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we often learn better with slaps rather than kind gestures. It's the way mankind has tended to want to go.
I get so sick of that 2x4, but it does show up periodically.
2x4, yeah, I love it.
Because normally life likes to actually just tap you on the shoulder, and say, hey, wait a minute, and then when you don't pay attention, then it pulls out the 2x4.
Well, you know what the student went to the master and said, Master, it's easy for you. You're enlightened and wise, and, you got everything sorted, and blah, 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 and blah. The student goes on, and the master says, the student says, you don't have any problems. The master looks at him and smiles. He says, you know what the difference is between you and me? The student says, what? And the master says, well, I just deal with the problems when they're small.
Yep.
I still have problems. Mm-hmm. I just follow the rocket of desire quicker than you do.
Yeah.
And you can get there too.
Absolutely.
As Christ said, you can do everything I can do and more.
It's interesting how great teachers like that have great things to say, and we so rarely listen to them.
Talk for yourself, Walt.
But I am speaking for myself. That's definitely
no. I'm only kidding.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
I've got enough baggage as well.
So often, there have been times in my life where I just didn't pay attention to, what was right in front of me, and I'm trying to learn to do that more and more often. You do that when you do a podcast. You're constantly faced with stuff that you didn't really want to face before. But just in general in life, I'm finding that more and more I really do want to focus on this stuff as it's presented to me. And that I see as a good thing, because that means I'm really, first of all, connecting more with who I am. And second of all, I am in that process becoming more attuned to what it is that I want and getting more specific about it. I mean, that's a key portion. You have to be specific about what it is that you want. If we spend so much of our time, agonizing about what's not going right, most often we have a great deal of trouble itemizing the details of what it is that we want. We treat it like, oh, well, it's an assumption. I'm feeling this pain right now, so I don't want to feel the pain. What's it going to like to feel like, that I don't have the pain? Well, I'll have no pain. I mean, that's about the end of it. We don't really go into details of, well, what do I want instead? And that's what I've been discovering. As I am paying more and more attention to this stuff, I learn more about what it is that I want instead. I learn about the details of it. I start kind of fleshing out the picture a little bit, if you know what I mean. And as that increases over time, then I tend to get more and more of that, which is a very good thing. Otherwise, I'd be really frustrated.
Which is a bit what Abram was trying to talk about, the newer concept which they brought out about filling in the grid.
Mm.
Yeah. So as the pieces of the puzzle come together, and the grid is often looked at as manifesting something in this world where a lot of us want something manifested, but it can happen on an emotional level, and on a confidence level, on a clarity level. It can happen on so many different levels. The way the grid fills in. So. But look for the grid. The grid. I got tongue-tied and twisted. Are there any other questions there? I see there's a few comments, but I'm
just
through them all.
Sarah followed up by saying, I just assume that they have their own issues and life problems. A lot of people at my work are very stressed. It's a hospital environment. Working for the NHS, I'd say 50% of the people here don't want to be here. Oh, she does have a question. Let me see if I can bring the question in. Hold on a second here.
Sarah, my wife used to work for the NHS. Part of the country are you? I'm curious.
While she's answering that question, I'll give you the question that she gave us to address. She says, I have a question. How can it be our issue if somebody comes into work in a bad mood with a bad attitude? How is this my fault and my issue? I mean, I listen to their anger or their emotion or whatever mood they're in. How is it to do with me?
How's it to do with you? So what they're doing and the way they come in has got nothing to do with you. How you react to it has got everything to do with you. So that is how I answer that. So if you remain clear, absolutely centered in your alignment, they will only come to you when they're happier. They will only respond to you. They will only come into your area and your vibration when you're happier. But if you're perceiving them as coming in as negative, bad, unhappy, and you keep focusing on that instead of saying, ooh, look at them, they're going to change and rise quickly, and wouldn't that be nice, and all that kind of thing. If that is where you're at, they will only come to you and affect you. They literally can't affect you unless you're a vibrational match. So you are letting in their negativity in some shape or form. So the challenge to be able to do for anybody in any situation that's troubling is to remain in alignment. Now, alignment needs to be clarified. And alignment is when you are so happy with where you're at, where you're going, and how you feel and what you are focused on achieving, that nothing else really matters. That is where it is, okay? That is where it is. So you keep that clarity going, and you don't have that kind of problem. I don't have anybody really arguing with me, tearing me apart, challenging me. I just don't get that anymore. I used to get that so often. You have no idea. It used to be a daily part of my life where, now I'm completely comfortable with emotional conflict. Some reason or other, I used to hate it and avoid it like the plague as a kid, and I used to get a lot of it. Now I find that emotional conflict is something I incredibly enjoy, if it ever comes my way, which it doesn't much anymore. But I just love it. I just love it because you get to that place of confidence, and I wish more and more people could get there. But it comes from studying yourself. Okay, it comes from understanding the rules to the game of life. It comes to applying them, not just understanding them. It comes from living them. It comes from focusing on where you want to go and being happy and getting the clarity of what's happening and why it's happening. I don't blame anybody for anything anymore. I just can't do that. It just is so abhorrent to the deep nature of my being anymore. I can't blame anybody for anything. I just can't, because I created it. How could I blame you for me? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. But people do it anyway.
Those people that do it don't believe they create their reality and don't live it
true.
and don't experience it. They don't, and they're vibrational match to being hit and knocked over the head and etc. So
Oh, yeah.
it's okay to be wherever you are. You know, it's okay to be where I'm at. It's okay to be where I was. I was bringing in this the story of the Harvard professor who went off to India and smoked a lot of. He got thrown out of Harvard because he was smoking too much marijuana. So he comes back teaching life and all the rest of it, and he's one of the best orators I've ever met. Ramdas, I've seen him live in London. I've talked about him briefly before on that podcast I commandeered. By accident.
That's funny.
So Ramdas came back and he was teaching in churches, he was teaching everywhere. His beautiful, clear understanding of life and all the rest of it. And he comes and he says quite clearly that Harvard psychology professor, who I was then, would have put who I am now in a straitjacket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he went through a huge transformation, absolutely massive. And that is the way I kind of feel about my old self. It's like, wow, what was I doing? Where was I at? Mm-hmm. You know, it was so warped off the path, so unclear, so muddy, so messy. And looking back at it, it did carve me into the person I am today. So I loved it. You know, I was so grateful for all the pain. You know, I was a nerd and I was an outcast, and I could only do things with individuals as opposed to a group. And not that I was shy, I just wasn't clear about what I wanted. I knew I could get on stage and talk, but I wasn't clear about what my message would be. I would just talk rubbish. You know, I wasn't shy, but there was no clarity or purpose to anything. And I spent years and years and years digging to find out who the hell is Louis. What is Louis? Where does Louis come from? Why is he here? What's he doing here? Primal question from the age of 8. Mom, what is truth, love, and God really about? Mm-hmm. And she goes, and I realized, I'm going to have to find that out for myself. Mm-hmm. Not going to get many answers here.
Yeah, right. Well, you made good answers. Might be the answers that you wanted, but
wanted or could see or understand,
or make sense out of. Yep, it's true. It's true. A couple points that you made there that I really liked. The first point being that we don't realize that, and this is going back a little bit, we don't really realize when we attract somebody into our lives who's behaving in a certain way because we expect it.
We don't.
It's a great point. It seems kind of like, well, you know, if they come into our lives with this negative attitude, they're the ones who did that. And that's true. They did. They're the ones who put themselves into that mindset. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't have attracted them in. It just means that that's the mindset they brought in, you know. And the simple fact is we can influence, not control, but we can influence others with our attitude. So if our attitude is that we're going to get people who behave nicely and who are happy and focusing on what they like and so forth, people will tend to be receptive to that energy if they have any degree of receptivity to it at all. If they have none, they probably won't show up in the first place. Or if they do, they will, you know, if you were in the same workplace, you know, that's usually like a common complaint. Well, I can't get away from them. I work in the same place they do. Well, interestingly enough, even in those situations, they find ways to wall themselves off from you. And I noticed that a lot. I mean, I haven't worked in an environment where I worked for somebody else for a couple decades now. But when I did, I saw it often. If there was somebody who came into work who was just in a bad space and I was in a good space, they never came near me that day. They could have worked in the next cubicle, and they would never even talk to me.
Exactly.
It just wasn't even part of my experience at all. And if a point came up for conversation over a water cooler or a coffee or whatever, the conversation would be so brief unless the other person was ready to climb out of their bad place. If they were ready to climb out, then the conversation would expand. But until they were ready for that, as long as I was not getting sucked into their energy, as long as I was keeping myself in the energy I wanted to be in, the conversation never happened. Or it lasted like 10 seconds and it was done.
But Walt, that information that you've just shared with everybody, I mean, it's so key. But people who have not been exposed to the way the universe works, haven't been given the rules to the game, haven't not only studied them, but put them in their life and lived them, don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get that.
Well, I didn't know the rules of the game either. I mean, literally, I kind of stumbled on that one. Because this was a good 10 years before I even saw The Secret, before I'd even heard the term law of attraction. So I didn't know how any of that actually worked. It was more than 10 years before that. But I was a kind of person who, if somebody was having a bad day, I might say something sympathetic, but there's also a piece of me that was basically saying, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I just want to be away from you. There was no actual conscious knowledge going on here other than, I don't prefer you. That was it. But that was enough.
What amuses me with you, Walt, is that you, how do I put this? You don't see that this is not your first time around. I mean, you probably get some of that. That's not
I get it every single week. Especially from Linda Armstrong, but go ahead.
I'm talking about lifetimes upon lifetimes.
That's what she's talking about, yeah.
Lifetimes upon lifetimes. And you're no newbie, okay? You're no newbie.
I once got a psychic reading from somebody who told me I've been here 1,350 times, and I said, boy, am I tired. but
you know what I would have said to that person?
What?
I've been a lot more than that. Don't sell me short.
Don't sell me short. No, but seriously, I agree with you. I have a little resistance there because I don't quite get how that would work. I mean,
what would work?
How is it that prior experiences I'm dragging along as baggage, but I don't know I'm dragging it along as baggage? I don't quite get that.
So you're talking about karma?
For lack of a better term, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So the only thing you're dragging along with you is that which you activate.
Which raises the question, am I really dragging it?
Exactly. You're only dragging it if you think you're dragging it, and if you think there's little baggage you're dragging, you're likely to be dragging some baggage which you're dragging because you're activating something. Okay, so karma needs to be completely re-explained to people because with the new understanding and clarity of the law of attraction, it's not what it used to be. Okay?
It's the new karma.
So karma is generally considered, okay, you get good and bad karma. Let's just talk about bad karma because 99% of people only talk about karma as bad. Okay. Karma is thoughts that you have thought during previous lifetimes, this lifetime, and whatever, of what you didn't want. Never, nothing more, nothing less. Game over.
Okay.
It's simple.
All right.
And it can't affect you unless you activate it. Okay. It's there because nothing is ever destroyed. No thought is ever destroyed. Abraham said this many, many times. Everything is always still there.
Oh, I see where you're going with it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That makes more
Everything is
sense.
always still there.
That makes more sense.
And you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of karma. End of story. Game over. Because it'll be stored in the ether of the universe forever.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But where you focus on is all that's going to be active and present in your life.
That's good. That's a form of karma I can buy into. That one makes sense to me.
Exactly. Now it makes sense to you. Now it's clear.
Yeah.
Now it feels fresh. Now it feels good. And yes, a need to understand what karma is. So when somebody talks about karma now, I have to explain to them what karma actually is because they don't know. Simply don't know.
Well,
They
if you
think
wonder
they
how
do.
many.
There's previous lifetime karma, there's karma of today, there's karma of other people, and they've actually got about eight different types of karma when you break them down, okay? And they're all supposed to be quite logical, etc. But yes, they're all thought forms, nothing more. And you can either activate that thought form or you can focus on where you're going. It's like, why should we not apologize? Because apologizing doesn't feel good. Because apologizing is going back to the problem area. Okay? And if you continue, oh, I'm so sorry I did this, I'm so sorry I did this, so sorry I did this, I'm so sorry I did this, you're activating what you don't want and it's going to become bigger. If you say, I was rude to somebody, instead of going apologizing, you say, wouldn't it be nice if I was nicer to people? And just focus on that. Then you've moved forward. It feels good. Your emotions are telling you that's the right way to go. The emotions are telling you, oh, I'm so sorry I did it, I'm so sorry. Your emotions are telling you that's not the way to go. It doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good. It may feel good if you say, I'm sorry, and then unfollow the rocket of desire. Quickly, sure, okay? But if you stay at any length of time longer than 17 seconds on what you don't want, law of attraction kicks in, magnifies it. Magnifies it.
I see your point. I can actually think of an exception to it. The exception would be where you're apologizing because the person you're apologizing to is somebody you want to help them get past it. Because the whole purpose of forgiveness, which is the flip side of apologizing, the whole purpose of forgiveness is to let go of the thing.
Oh, so you want to manipulate people, Walt?
No, I don't want to manipulate them any more than you want to manipulate them when you're giving them talks. What I want to do is give them assistance if they're willing to receive it. If they're not willing to receive it, then once the apology is done, then I'm done. You know, it's like, okay, well, I tried. You know, if you're not ready to receive it, that's not my problem. I just did what I could do to reach out. You know, but I might still reach out that first time just because I want to help them. I want to help them feel better about it.
Yeah.
And that's my rocket of desire right there. That's me putting out a rocket of desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as we're clear that if we ever want to help anybody, it's only for the reason that we think we will feel better in the helping of them.
Ultimately, yeah. That's what it always
Ultimately, always comes down to that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people say, I want to help this person, I want to do this, I want to help the poor, I want to help the needy, I want to help them. But do they know why they want to help them?
Yeah. Probably not. Well, actually, this goes back to something I wanted to say a moment ago. I wonder how many people who are advocates of the concept of karma really don't understand karma.
Of course.
Because the way you just described it is completely different from the way that most people teach it and explain it and talk about it.
Yeah. As I say, I don't tend to have many of those conversations anymore because the people I draw to me don't... that's kind of my old life. Mm-hmm. The religion, the karma, all that stuff is my old life. And I was big into it. I got very high in spiritual groups. So
that has a double meaning, you realize.
I was high, man, real high. I love it when people go to Abram and they said hi, and they say, yes, we are.
Oh, I love that. I haven't heard that. That's good. That's great. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, this gives me a new perspective on karma. I never really had that one before. Because you're right. I mean, I knew all along. I think most of us who study this stuff know this concept that once a thought is thought, it sticks around forever. But I don't think I'd ever really thought about so what does that imply about my own thoughts over time? What does that mean? Well, that means they're still out there. You know, they're still out there. And it's kind of... Well, it's got two pieces to it. One piece is, well, they don't go away. Like, oh, geez, they don't go away, do they? And then the other piece of it is, I think I'm going to be a little bit more selective about what it is that I think about because I'm just piling up all the stuff I don't want.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you know how liberating that is, Walt? It is undescribably liberating. When it clearly comes into your mind that if I bump into somebody or I'm rude to somebody, instantly I'm thinking about being clearer about how I walk and being more centered into the space of where I'm at. So I'm more aware of where I'm going and how I'm walking. And I'm not thinking about apologizing. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just moving forward, moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. If somebody disagrees with me, I'm happier than if they agree with me. Usually, almost equal now. It really doesn't bother me. I actually often say to the guys, I really want you to question me, to argue with me, because in anybody's criticism and anybody's conflicting information and everybody's trying to dissect what I'm saying, I get greater clarity how to present it, how to put it across, how to make it clearer. Like somebody said to me the other day, one thing I don't like about the law of attraction is, person's probably listening to this.
Well, I'm thinking to myself, only one? Hey, this is good. We made progress.
But it's a great one, and I really want to thank her for bringing it up. She said, it's that, you can't be positive all the time. It's just not possible.
Oh, yes.
My teaching is not to be positive all the time. Do you know how important it is to be negative? Do you understand how important it is to have negative emotion and negative experiences? Why is it important? And I asked them to try and break that down. Why? Well, why is it important to have negative emotion? I know you can answer this easily and quickly.
Well, yeah, Abraham. This is a key Abraham concept. The negative is where we experience the contrast that creates the expansion that continues to grow everything that there is. So without that, you wouldn't get anywhere. So
that's what I could have said to them straight away, but I didn't.
Well, that would be much too short.
No, I said that straight afterwards. It's perfect. But what I was trying to say to the person was, I understand where you're coming from by saying the story, which I've mentioned before on podcasts. I said to her that when I was at high school, there was this girl who won an award for debating, and she was able to present it to us at assembly, and it was all about positivity. And when I listened to it, I felt sick in my stomach. Something was wrong with telling us to be positive all the time and look at things positively and all the rest of it. I felt sick about it, absolutely sick. And I called it, at the time, phony holy.
Phony holy, okay.
It was just phony. There was something wrong about it. And until I got to the Abraham teachings of saying, we don't ask you to be positive all the time. The importance of being negative is it's your expansion tool. Then everything became clear. Then I didn't have so much of a problem about being positive. Now it's so much easier for me to positive with the appreciation of the negative. And with the complete trust and love and step 5ing of the negative, really getting it and loving it. So it was key for me, absolutely key for me to get to the understanding of why the negative is important. And I'm often harboring on about it. You've probably heard me about 6 times say the same thing. And I'll go on and on and on saying it because it's a key factor that people need to grasp, is how incredibly important that negative is and how it's the design of the physical universe. You come into the contrasting universe to first know what you don't want before you have clarity about what you do want. Any more questions out there?
Nasha says she's not getting audio right now, and I'm not sure what that's about. I'm not seeing anybody else saying me too. I saw Sarah lost her connection for a moment, but I think she got it back.
I'm watching myself on the other screen, so it seems to be coming through.
Yeah, it all seems to be working. So, I'm not sure what's going on there, Nasha. But getting to what you were talking about there, this is a conversation that Cindy Chavez and I have had a number of times. And I really love her take on it, and I've adopted it as my own take, which is, it isn't about good or bad. It isn't about positive or negative. It's about preferred or not.
So,
preferred.
Cindy, it's not yours anymore. It's mine.
It's about preferred or not preferred. What do you prefer? What don't you prefer? And the reason we like that is because there are charges that we put, like electrical or vibrational charges that we attach to these things about good and evil, about positive and negative and so forth. And when we look at just in terms of preferred and not preferred, the charge disappears for some reason, which is good as far as I'm concerned, because once the charge is gone, now it's a lot easier to understand it the way you're describing it, which is that it isn't here that I'm here to avoid something that's negative all the time. In fact, that's the first thing that occurs to me when I hear somebody say, like you described, well, it's impossible to be positive all the time. And just the phrasing of it. Think about what the phrasing is. The phrasing is, you can't be positive all the time. To which the universe says, your wish is my command. I mean, it's just built right into it, you know?
It was really interesting how negative I felt at the age of 13 listening to this debate. I really had a gut-wrenching feeling that I didn't like it.
Mm.
It was so strong, and it left a marked impression on my whole life. That one experience, you know. And when somebody says to me, "Yeah, you can't be positive all the time," and you know, that's what I don't like about the law of attraction. I get it. I get why they're coming there. I get why they're saying it. The individual I'm talking about actually is a what do you call these government people who look after children who have been abused and
Social worker?
that kind of thing? Social worker, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is a really tough job.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Really tough job.
Yeah.
Keep your positivity, keep your clarity, keep your balance, see that everything's working out for you. It's really tough. I mean, it's tough.
Because it's even harder to see that it's working out for them too. That it isn't so much.
No, that's the difficult one. Yeah.
It isn't so much whether it's working out for you. Although, if you're like most people, you become empathetic. You can tie in emotionally to what they're going through, and now all of a sudden you're going through it vicariously.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas
if
somebody can go into that with a healthy frame of mind, and this is why I was really glad to hear this the first time Louise explained this to me, because she was a therapist for 10 years. People who are in that field, they get guidance from other people in the field. In other words, they check on each other. They check, are you attaching to the person you're helping? Are you doing things that are basically putting yourself into a bad space so you can't be helpful to somebody else? And I just realized right now that's actually something that Abraham teaches, and I never made the connection until now. That's the place of you can't help somebody else until you're in a good place yourself. Now, they didn't actually express it that way, but that's what they're really saying. And it really does make sense when you look at it that way.
To be of best help to anybody in that kind of situation, you need to be aligned.
Yeah.
So you need to wake up feeling good. You need to carry that feeling good as far into the day as absolute possible. And it's challenging. It's challenging in some jobs. I always wonder how, and I suppose they do, how policemen don't get angry or frustrated more often than most, you know. They see violence and anger and all the rest of it, and, you know, what you see affects you. So, you know, it's how to keep your alignment through all that. It's really tricky. Really tricky.
It's actually...
And how not to get, like my wife's a nurse, how not to get sick with all that sickness around you all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's actually a topic that shows up in movie and television dramas quite a bit. Policemen who run into the various high drama situations and how they deal with it. And so often the characters portrayed end up acting out their own anger and frustrations and bitterness and so forth and bringing it into the scene, whatever the scene is. There's one particular character in a drama that my wife likes to watch called Blue Bloods. And this guy is the top cop, the top detective for detecting, you know, finding criminals and so forth. And this guy, it's clear the character is just loaded with anger issues. Absolutely loaded down with anger issues. And from that perspective, it's actually a well-written drama, because what it's really all about is this guy constantly coming face to face with himself through what he does in his work. You know, so he's over and over and over again being presented with, okay, here's what you're putting out to the universe. Here's what you're putting out to the universe. Here's what you're putting out to the universe. And you're getting it back. You're getting it back. You're getting it back.
You know what I dislike a lot about movies is that they often are not based on the law of attraction. And I watched one recently. It's called Medici. It's fascinating, absolutely brilliant. It's about Italian wealthy family that got the papal account, and there were two brothers. And the interesting thing was the one brother was very much in love with this woman, and and it was somebody else's wife, and he'd had an affair with her, and then the husband didn't look after her well, and she was sick, and she eventually died, and he was totally distraught by it. And the other one was running the business and trying to deal with everything and focused on where he was going. And nobody liked these Medici, well, nobody. The one family really hated them. They wanted them out. And they weren't aristocracy. They were middle class, and they'd bought themselves into the aristocracy, and they didn't have the lineage and hated them and blah, 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 blah. So they wanted to get them out. And they wanted to try all different places, but the only place they found that they could actually attack them and do anything is in the church, because they wouldn't be wearing this and that and have protection and blah, blah, blah. So they attacked them in the church, and the interesting thing was the one son who was so totally distraught that this woman was dead and just wanted to be with her died. And the one that was focused on the business and getting everything right, he was the one who lived. So you can actually see the vibrational clarity through the whole thing, because it was based on a real story and how it actually happened.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to see the law of attraction accurately portrayed in that movie, which was based on real life, as opposed to when you look at some of them, they just look like they're in the worst situation in the world with no responsibility of their own. It just happened to them,
Yes.
happened to them. And I find that frustrating sometimes when I'm watching a movie and they're trying to portray, for no reason whatsoever, this person has just been sat all over and squashed, and etc. So, seeing it in real life as to how it actually works is key to understanding how it works in your life, and not necessarily movies, not necessarily helping you understand the law of attraction with great clarity.
I do think
it's becoming clearer and clearer to me.
I think that the movies that are the more successful movies, the ones that people like more, are the ones that are more consistent in the way they portray life from a law of attraction perspective.
Sometimes, yes.
More often than not, I would say. And I think the reason is that when you try to portray a scene or a series of scenes in a way that is inconsistent with the way the universe works, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, even if you don't have to understand the law of attraction to know it doesn't feel right.
No, it just doesn't feel right.
The
higher self is saying it doesn't work like this. I'm going to give you negative emotion. Yeah.
We usually describe it in terms of suspending your disbelief, because we all know it's fiction that we're watching on the screen. Well, unless it's a documentary, and even then there's a fictional element to it. But the point is, we know that it's fiction.
I've heard of that wording before, suspending
disbelief?
Suspending disbelief, I think it's a great analogy,
It is. It's a great way of describing it. When you're suspending your disbelief, you're doing so because you're buying into the scene. You're saying, yes, that scene or this movie or whatever is portraying something that feels real to me, that feels true. And I think the ones where we're able to suspend our disbelief most easily are the ones that portray life from an accurate perspective of how law of attraction works. Now, having said that, I won't claim that I like all movies that do that, because I don't. There are a lot of movies that do this very well that I really want to have nothing to do with, because I have my preferences and no, I prefer that, I don't prefer that. But nevertheless, they are more successful.
Have you ever heard of EastEnders?
That sounds familiar, but I can't tell you anything about it.
It's a very famous English soap.
Oh, okay. All right.
But the American soaps are all Dallas and smart and clean and rich and all the rest of it. Well, imagine completely the opposite, where they shitty houses with shitty comments, with shitty education, and living in a shitty part of London, and the country has lapped that up. I mean, it's been going on for 20 years or so. It's just ridiculous. It's so. But it's very real to life, I mean, the fact that it's probably based quite accurately on the law of attraction is probably the thing that's kept it together. But it just makes me want to bring up and puke. It's some people's cup of tea. It's just some people's cup of tea.
Not mine, that's for sure.
Not mine.
The hardest challenge for me on a day-to-day basis, and I literally mean this, is separating what I want to focus on and what I want from what my wife does. Because she spends a lot of time watching television programs that I don't want to have anything to do with. And I think this is kind of emblematic of a lot of things that people deal with. There are people that their they work with or their family members or whatever, and they're just not on the same wavelength on certain things. I mean, not that Louise and I aren't ever on the same wavelength. We are. A lot of things we're on. But this kind of thing is one of those areas where we're not. So the question is, well, how do you deal with that? How do you handle the fact that, there's this stuff going on there that you don't want to have anything to do with? And to me, it's a great, I used to treat it, to think about it and to treat it as if it were some kind of an evil curse that were attacking me. But now I'm seeing it as an opportunity to really focus my mind now in the face of this adversity, so to speak. And is it a major adversity? No, it's pretty minor, actually, as things go. But, no, it's a form of adversity.
So why don't you get your own room and your own TV? Where's the problem?
Well, actually, in a sense that I do. I have this room that I do a podcast in while she's listening to the TV, and there is a door closed between the two. And that definitely helps a lot. But even when I'm not doing the podcast, even with the door closed, she turns the TV way up, so I'm still hearing the TV. So there's really actually no place I can go to get away from it entirely. I have to decide to change my focus on it. Literally, I'm faced with I either change my focus or I allow it to control how I'm feeling. It's one or the other.
Well, the question I would ask you, Walt, is it easier to change your wife or is it easier to change yourself?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's why I'm focusing on my focus, because I can't really change her directly. I can influence her, but I can't change her. She's going to do what she's going to do.
I sit also in a room where my wife comes and sits and watches the TV, and she listens to all these doctor-type programs, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then you listen to these people talking about health and the body in a way that's completely out of sync with the way I've come to understand it is, and I was like, and I'm spending a lot of time going like this. But it's interesting because it does give clarity to me of how many people still think that way, and how this is run by the NHS, which is the National Health System in the UK, and they've brought it in, and this is what they see as their reality at the moment, and how they need to fix things. And, the whole medical profession is so screwy that I wouldn't know where to begin, from top to bottom. And then you've got people that are more aligned, like my wife, who go in there and hold the whole thing together. And when they leave, the other people take over and thing falls apart, then she comes in and it falls back together again when she leaves. And you've got this concertina thing going on like this: alignment, no alignment, alignment, no alignment in the business. And it's quite fascinating watching. I mean, it's just really, 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 really interesting.
Yeah, you just described about 98% of everyday life going on everywhere around the world is that little concertina thing going on right there. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
I was just looking at the clock and I realized that we're a couple minutes over, which is a good thing. That means
couple hours over.
A couple hours over. Yeah, that's right.
Easily done with us.
But it shows how much we're enjoying it. So this has been good. This has been a good conversation. So thank you very much. I look forward to doing it again with you next week, because this is always...
Thank you guys that are listening in.
Yep. And thank you for the live stream questions.
Take care.
Too. Yep. We appreciate all that.
Carpe diem.
Carpe diem. Absolutely. Seize the day. If you don't seize the day, who else is going to do it? I mean, really, who else is going to do it? It's got to be you, right?
Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, all the more reason to seize the day. So with that cheery note, we're going to say we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye.
Okay, guys. Have a good one. Bye.